Hello, everybody. I'm Mayor Watt. I run that site. That site is ohmTown.com. It aggregates a bunch of news, throws it into categories. Those categories also have channels. Each one of the channels is intended to be a 1 hour at least show here on Twitch, and then subsequently posted over on YouTube and its own podcasts. Plural. Yes. 50 shows a week is the intent. Right now, I'm only running the one every day. I started this process at the beginning of the year formally. And if you are interested in being a host or co-host, get in touch with me. That said, those 6 categories are create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. You'll see those across the top of the page, and each of the shows underneath contain the news that gets aggregated by what is referred to as the gatherer. And it reaches out and grabs content based on my particular segments of interest, I guess you could say. And if you are interested in the various and pretty broad spectrum of news that I gather, then welcome to ohmTown. Go on over to ohmTown.com, become a citizen. I'll be reactivating certain functions that have been disabled while I'm working on certain administrative things, trying to optimize it, trying to remove things like duplicates. But most of the time, I'd say pretty much all the time, whenever you click on the ohmTown logo at the top left corner, you will refresh the page and it will have new news. That said, I give everybody about 20 articles in this 1 hour show. And I go through it pretty quickly. If anybody's in chat and wants to talk about something, I'm happy to do that too. Feel free to interject. I have no problem dealing with the discussion. It's what I do pretty much every day. And it's fun. I prefer the real-time interaction than I don't really like editing the video. So when I post it to YouTube, I don't chop up the video in any way, shape, or form. I put something on the beginning and end so people know what it is. But other than that, I leave it as it is. Ums and uhs and stumbling and sneezes and my interjections throughout the news. It is the way it is. And the podcast is the exact same thing. So it is the audio format, not the video format, but it is largely unedited. I don't think I edit anything anymore. That said, let's get into the news. It's going to be like usual, I suppose. I shouldn't water it down. It's going to be a chaotic mess of news. That's just the way that I aggregate news into my worldview. I see a broad spectrum of things. And like most people, we react to the news. And sometimes you don't even know about the news. So that's why I put the show together. And why it's such an eclectic array, from maker content to technology to business, in between all of this, education. The United States federal government content is far weekly. We talk about government contracting. There's a lot of misperception about it, which is why I wanted to start the show. There's all kinds of news, and this is the daily news show at ohmTown. So again, I'll get into this now instead of whatever it is I'm doing. So the first article, and I posted into the chat, and then I'll also include it in the description on YouTube and on the podcast and elsewhere. This is an article that was grabbed and thrown into the Daily News Show's channel. You can log in and then post replies, and you become a citizen of ohmTown, and there will be a means to generate points. It's going to be referred to as ohm, which is the dollar value, the currency within ohmTown. And that will get translated over to Twitch as well. So I'm working on the process, but it's not something that's easily done. this article is big oil is trying to profit from the war in Ukraine. This is pretty typical. I mean, wherever a business can seek profit, it will seek profit, regardless of what somebody's perception of ethics or morals or virtue signaling, etc. It says the fossil fuel industry should be forced to fund the clean energy transition, not allowed to make even more money as the Ukrainian people suffer. Whenever there's conflict, business seems to capitalize on it. This is an article written by Jamie Henn for commondreams.org. Like other episodes, I would just want to remind anybody that's listening to this or watching that I don't read this material prior to the show. I end up reacting to it just like you are reacting to it as I am presenting it here. My aggregator only grabs a small portion of it, nothing more, and then I encourage you to go and visit the source. Then come on back and talk to me about it. You can come back tomorrow and talk to me about, hey, I read that article about big oil is trying to profit from the war in Ukraine. It says, this time we can't let them get away with it. That starts with loudly and publicly debunking their arguments and then pivoting to our own real solutions to the energy issues surrounding the conflict and ongoing climate emergency. This whole article is speaking about this particular conflict in a very specific context, which is oil. Well, my perception of what's going on in Ukraine is that Putin/Russia, right? So it's not just one person. It can't be just one person. Otherwise, nothing would ever get going. But there is a machine, a mechanism, a process, and people are enacting that mandate. Take this country's land back, I suppose, because at one point everything was a federation. It was all grouped together. Well, in this particular instance, I think that they're going to take as much of Ukraine to the river. I think it's called the Dnieper. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly because it's, me trying to pronounce Ukrainian river and nobody's said it to me yet. So at any rate, that is my understanding. That is my interpretation of what I see happening. Obviously, I don't know what the full intent is going to be, but it's to get down to the Crimean Peninsula, where big oil plays in all of this. It's all really about territory and resources and getting to a warm water port and so on. So my particular take on this is until we move away from oil entirely, this is probably going to be kind of a steady state thing because Russia is providing some oil and gas supplies to various countries in the region. I don't see any of this changing until leadership changes. And who knows when and if that will ever happen. But I encourage you to go over to this article at Common Dreams and read all of it, right? It says here a liquid natural gas LNG refueling station is seen at Big Blue Bus Terminal in Los Angeles, right? That's this here. So if this is all about big oil, gas, and doing something with it in Ukraine and between Ukraine and the Crimean Peninsula and Russia, it's going to end up backfiring for a little bit, but people have such a short memory in certain contexts, but extremely long in others. And in this particular instance, it's not going to build any fans. I mean, it really isn't, not fans that matter. You're going to have an entire country of Ukraine constantly fighting, and nobody wants this. So I'm not sure why it even was initiated, but I may be small brain here. So let's continue on with this. But I'm curious about what your take is on this. If you are interested in this kind of stuff, if you have a take, so to speak, on this, sorry for the fast scroll, let me know. Let me know in chat. Let me know in an email. Let me know in a message on ohmTown. Let me know on Twitter. I sent out a message about streaming the news today, and you can reply to that. And let me know your thoughts. It's definitely, if you follow the money, if you follow the control, the power, the influence, there's more to this than just big oil. It's all about control, influence, power. So let's continue on because I'll get bogged down in this. And the next article is in the Dictionary channel. That channel talks about words, the creation of words, the etymology of words, how words get meaning. This particular segment is it's the phrase as snug as a bug in a rug, that kind of a thing, right? So when did this happen? Where did it form? What does it actually mean? So it talks about this in greater detail. If you click on the link, you'll get taken to the site wordhistories.net. And I'm not sure if this lists, I think the author is Pascal Traeger. And it goes into the etymology of this phrase. And I encourage you to go over to the site and take a look at it. What does it really mean? I mean, snug as a bug in a rug means simply that it's nice and warm and happy and, not being predated on by, poisons or other insects or other animals or whatever, right? So it goes into greater detail about what all of that is. And it's usually alliterative. So it likes to roll snug as a bug in a rug. It's quite fascinating. In this particular instance, it's an English word or English phrase, but it can be formed in any other language. And then we end up comparing it against some source and then building out its entire history. And that's what etymology is really about, figuring out when it was first used, where it was used, by who, and its context, and how it can change. And language is a living entity, a living thing, construct. So it'll change over time. So go over to wordhistories.net, and you can follow that link and get taken there. The next article is in the Word and Tech channel, and it's about Apple reportedly working on a device with a 20-inch folding display. And the snippet here is that Apple may be working on a device that is a 20-inch foldable display, which Apple tracker Mark Gurman describes as an iPad MacBook hybrid, which my understanding is that Apple was never interested in making a foldable tablet with a keyboard / MacBook feel, power, capabilities. You either have the tablet or you have an add-on Bluetooth keyboard. But a 20-inch foldable MacBook with the power of the functionality of an iPad, I think it's always been seen as two separate things that fit certain needs. And that maybe with the M1 and M2 chips, the possibility of a long battery life, powerful folding tablet could come to fruition. For me, that would be great because I love the iPad, but I also need the power of a laptop, and everything being integrated, more external ports, although USB-C is extremely powerful now. There, yeah, I'd be struggling though with a 20-inch piece of glass. You don't want to hold it. Even an iPad Pro is extremely heavy over time. But a 20-inch piece of glass and its keyboard and its everything associated with it would be extremely heavy, and not really an iPad kind of device. But let's go over to The Verge and see this article. Emma Roth is the author of this over at The Verge, and it says that it's still years away. So looking at 2026, according to let's see, Ross Young, who's the CEO and analyst at Display Supply Chain Consultants. Wow, that's niche. Maybe not niche, but niche to me. And then, of course, Mark Gurman has been in this industry and talking about Apple stuff for decades. But so Gurman claims the device will feature dual screen display that omits a physical keyboard and trackpad. Navigating and typing on the device will be entirely touchscreen based. Oh boy. Okay, well, we'll see how that goes. Tablets with dual touchscreens, they lack, for most power users, I'd say, they lack a level of response when you type. And so you end up typing like you do on an iPad, which is you have to watch to make sure that you're typing the right thing, and it slows you down considerably. Whereas, I can type 125 words a minute on a mechanical keyboard because I hear and feel, I get some feedback. There is no feedback from a sheet of glass, at least not yet. Maybe they'll add some of that mechanism. But go over to The Verge and read the rest of this article. Apple is reportedly working on a device with a 20-inch folding display. We'll see. We'll see what happens. The next article is in the Continuity Report, which talks about movies. The Uncharted movie is based on the game Uncharted, and I think anything that Tom Holland is involved in is going to be kind of a breakout hit. I think people see him as being very authentic and honest and very good at the art. And so everybody kind of instantly become a fan of his. It says here, Sony's video game adaptation, Uncharted, starring Tom Holland as street smart treasure hunter Nathan Drake, had another solid showing at the international box office over the weekend. The PG-13 video game adaptation collected $35 million from 64 overseas territories, pushing its international tally to $143 million, with 83 in North American ticket sales. So this article is over at variety.com, written by Rebecca Rubin. It's funny that Mark Wahlberg is in it, but isn't mentioned anywhere in the snippet or let's see. I'm going to scroll through this and see where he actually does get mentioned. Oh, look, I don't think he gets mentioned. Oh, he gets mentioned, but not until halfway down. Okay, that's fine. The globetrotting adventure follows Nathan Drake and his wisecracking partner Sully, who is Mark Wahlberg. All right, well, at least he's not a professor telling us that the trees are trying to kill us. Anyway, bad take. Okay, I'm going to continue on. The next article is in the Word and Tech channel. Samsung updates its Galaxy Book Pro line with a 1080p webcam. You might be surprised to know that not everybody is using a 1080p camera. Samsung has announced 2 updates to its premium Galaxy Book line, the Galaxy Book 2 Pro and Galaxy Book 2 Pro 360. The devices start at basically $1,100, $1,050 and $1,250. I rounded up a penny just in case you're listening and not watching, or watching and not listening. I don't know. Anyway, they hit the shelves April 1st. Interesting time. With pre-orders beginning on March 18th, a budget-oriented Galaxy Book 2 360, a convertible version of the regular Galaxy Book, will also ship April 1st and start at $900. So let's click this link and take you over to The Verge. Monica Chin is the author of this article, and has a picture of a white keyboard Samsung Galaxy Book 2. And it looks like Windows 11 on it. Yeah. Because it has a centered control panel at the bottom. Taskbar. A different... Never mind. I'm going to dig my own hole here if I start talking about this. At any rate, the models come in a 13.3 inch and 15.6 inch size. And if you're in the market for a relatively inexpensive Galaxy Book, device, then go for it. The displays are AMOLED, and brighter than they were in last year's model, according to the article. Yeah, I think I'd have to look to see more about that, how bright they might be. And let's see, the storage is 1 terabyte, depending on which model you get. 32 gigs of RAM, Core i7. This is all the latest iteration of the tech. I mean, really, I think that I'm hoping at some point that the storage sizes will increase, because video, audio, games, data, all of this can chew up 1 terabyte so fast. Plus the size of the operating system will cut that in half anyway. Well, maybe not in half, but depending on your deployment, it can be several hundred gigs worth of operating system and core applications. I know the images that I push out regularly are somewhere around 500 gigs, but it contains a lot of applications. That said, maybe you don't have that many applications. Okay, well, go over to The Verge and read the rest of this article, and come on back. It says there's a clamshell and a convertible. I love convertible laptops, by the way, because sometimes you just want to scribble a note and not have the keyboard unfurled. This next article is OtterBox's Disney Anniversary iPhone case. It's a review. It says fun but lacks MagSafe. This is an article in Smack Talk, which talks about Apple and Apple products, services, people, things, right? OtterBox's collection of Disney World iPhone cases pair the popular Symmetry case with nostalgic and retro imagery, though they lack support for Apple's MagSafe. The 3 styles of the cases are probably going to be on the website. There you go. So now the article is written by Andrew O'Hara over at appleinsider.com, and it shows 3 cases. With Mickey and Minnie and the castle, and I'm not quite sure what this last one is. I mean, it's a star sun kind of a thing with points coming out of it, and I'm not sure exactly what all it encompasses, but it kind of looks like a compass with a whole bunch of arrows on it, or points coming out of it. Looks pretty neat. I mean, they're Disney products. I'm not sure about the longevity of them, if they're gonna scratch easy or anything like that. But it's OtterBox, so OtterBox products are great. I used to, and I'm not sure if I'm using one right now. Yeah, I actually am right now. It's, you know, I've never had a problem with an OtterBox case. I've dropped them onto cement. I've dropped them onto hardwood floors and tile, and not saying that I'm like Butterfingers, but when you've had a device for 2 to 5 years, you tend to drop it. And there isn't well, I don't really drop mine. I don't drop mine that often, but I've never had a problem where I've dropped my OtterBox case and it's damaged the device inside it. That said, I have dropped stuff inside laptop bags and broken the stuff inside it. So OtterBox stands up to the name. As for the Disney name being attached to this, let's scroll down here. I want to see what the price is. They go into detail about it, that it meets certain mil spec 48 inches onto concrete. So it can protect your phone during a 12-foot drop, according to the article. And I want to tell you what the price is, but I don't see it. $60. There you go. And they're available on Amazon. So go over to appleinsider.com and click on the link. I think that they may benefit from the link on their site. So follow the link that's in my chat, follow the link in the description on the website and the podcast and so on. And you'll help them. And the next article is in the Warcrafters channel. This is where we discuss first-person, real-time, and role-playing game kind of shooters, world building, things like that. And this is it's an article that grabbed way too much content from the source. It says Total War Warhammer 3 data miners find voice file for Chaos Dwarfs. A single line of advisor dialogue data mined from Total War Warhammer 3 has all but confirmed that the next faction coming to Creative Assembly's masterpiece is the expected one, Chaos Dwarfs. So yeah, I'm going to have to edit this feed, but so my aggregator grabbed way too much content from this source, but let's go over to the source. It's pcgamer.net. Oh, wait, pardon me. pcgamer.com. It's written by Jonathan Bolding, and it says it seemed obvious that Total War Warhammer 3's next faction would be, but here's another bit of evidence. And apparently they found some voice files that reference Chaos Dwarfs. If you've not seen Total War Warhammer 3 over on Twitch, check it out. It's amazingly high resolution, in depth, very complex, but apparently I don't play it. It's not my style of game. I would prefer Warhammer 40K, where I can control smaller armies within a completely destructible 3-dimensional environment from the first person perspective, and I can flip from one thing to another. 30 years ago it's something that I pitched to Electronic Arts. Basically I was told after a lot of discussion that the tech just wasn't possible for what I wanted, but it's slowly coming to fruition. We'll see if it ever actually does get manifest, but Total War Warhammer 3 is an amazing piece of kit. And so if you're interested in Warhammer, then you'll love Warhammer 3. It's a lot of fun to watch. And you kind of get pulled into it more and more. So brace yourself for losing many hours. In the meantime, go over to pcgamer.com and read the article. And again, PC Gamer has this really cool button on their articles where you can click it and it will read the article to you. So it's pretty neat. The next article is in the Tabletop Nights channel. This is where we talk about tabletop gaming, but not games like poker and stuff like that. It's games like Dungeons and Dragons, right? And in this particular instance, it's Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was announced. Pokemon Company held a new Pokemon Presents presentation. Wow, that's a lot of P's there. During which it announced Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. The games are the latest generation of mainline Pokemon titles and look to build upon the changes introduced in Pokemon Legends Arceus with an open world to explore. So let's click this link, take you over to the source. rpgamer.com is the source. Alex Fuller is the writer. And it goes into greater detail about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and how it's tied in some way to Arceus. If you haven't watched it, they've got a trailer for it. And you might be interested in watching all of it. I end up watching little snippets of these things just to keep aware of what's going on with Pokemon. But I don't play Pokemon. I know many others that do, though. So it says no other details were released about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but it was planned for release in late 2022. Okay, so the next article is in Smack Talk again. That's the Smack Talk channel. It talks about Apple. 3 Apple Watch models are expected for 2022 as Series 3 retires. The next Apple Watch updates will consist of 3 models. The Apple Watch Series 8 generation is expected to incorporate quite a few design changes. So I'm curious what it is. Well, that's an interesting design change. We'll see if that actually comes into existence. Malcolm Owen is the author of this, and it shows a picture of the 2 sides of the Apple Watch. And based on the comparison between my current generation, and I don't even remember which one it is, and this one, the edges are going to be sharper, more in line with the current generation iPads and MacBook models, where it kind of has a sharp edge and not rounded. Like mine is rounded. You can't really tell, but my generation of watch is rounded. And it has, I think it's pretty much the same in terms of the sides of like what is there, speaker and buttons, and the crown. So let's see here. It says Apple Watch generation is expected to incorporate quite a few changes and may include more than 1 model being released in 2022. This is an article that's influenced by Mark Gurman's Power On newsletter for Bloomberg. And I'm not quite sure, really. There have been sales for the Apple Watch previously. And if Apple doesn't think that it's going to sell out of everything, you can recall it and then melt all of that aluminum down and or steel down and recover it for the next generation and just kind of phase out the old generations. I mean, it's really not a big deal for them. It says, however, he does say that the models will include faster chips as well as quote unquote major updates to activity tracking. And I think anything that takes advantage of the watch in terms of activity tracking is great, particularly the health sector. There's always concerns about the efficacy of the tracker. So if you are a runner or you do exercise and you're wearing your watch, does it track actually your distance if you're walking or running or whatever it is you're doing accurately? I've not had a real problem with it, but maybe you have as a user. You can let me know. Be great to hear from you. This next article is referred to as the Sunday Read. The battle for the world's most powerful cyber weapon. And the snippet that my aggregator grabbed is a New York Times investigation reveals how Israel reaped diplomatic gains around the world from NSO's Pegasus software, a tool America itself purchased but is now trying to ban. So again, this is a New York Times article, and it's written by Ronan Bergman and Mark Mazzetti. And they investigate Pegasus, an Israeli spying tool that was acquired for use by the FBI, in which the United States government is now trying to ban. It's used globally. For nearly a decade, NSO, an Israeli firm, has been selling this surveillance software on a subscription basis to law enforcement and intelligence agencies. You might be interested in this if you are interested in privacy, cybersecurity. It says here, despite the emergence of even more sophisticated systems such as Phantom, which turn your target smartphone into an intelligence goldmine, Bergman and Mazzetti's piece explains that the days of Israelis' spyware monopoly are almost over, since the growing desire with the United States government for hacking tools has been noticed by American competitors. Well, I don't know how to explain my perspective other than it says here at the very bottom of this article, cyber weapons are here to stay, but their legacy is still to be determined. So my perspective of this, most of the tools that are extremely powerful are not known. They're not sold as a service somewhere. They're used in-house by security companies. They're homegrown. They're very well protected from exfiltration. They don't want anybody having access to the tools, because the more you know about the tool, the easier it is to hide the whatever it is you're trying to hide. Now, for somebody to get that software on my device, they would have to know me so well that they can touch my device for more than 30 seconds. Nobody's getting that kind of access to my personal devices. Nobody's touching my phone but me. Nobody's touching my watch but me. Nobody's touching my iPad. Nobody's gaining access to my computers but me. The moment that they leave my hands, I am instantly suspicious of it, even if it goes back to corporate, or even if it goes back to the enterprise, whatever it might be. I'm already suspicious of it. And so, I have software firewalls on all of my devices. I have hardware firewall on the edge of my network. I have something watching the packets that flow across my network at home and out from my network to other places, always being notified. Now, is it paranoid? Not in my particular line of work. It might be perceived that by some if you are, I don't know, doing something else, right? But in my particular line of work, I want the protections. I want the awareness. I want that fidelity of understanding what my network is doing at all times. This stream out to the internet is probably the most exposed I've ever been in my entire existence. And software like this is used primarily to gather intelligence, and it would take an insider to introduce something into an enterprise. If the enterprise is built properly, there's always a hole somewhere, and it isn't a matter of, protecting yourself 100%, because it's really almost impossible until the software, the hardware and configuration is infallible. There's always going to be some way to get in, some way to manipulate. It just takes effort, dedication, and in cases like this, state sponsoring. Every once in a while, you'll find somebody that's savant and just brilliant at doing an attack, finding some way of vectoring into the enterprise. But it's not as it's harder when you have a bigger operation to protect yourself, because there's so many open doors possible. So go and check this out. The Battle for the World's Most Powerful Cyber Weapon, an article that's written by Ronan Bergman and Mark Mazzetti for the New York Times. You might be interested in it. It's also an Apple podcast known as The Daily. That's where this article was written, or that's where the podcast is going to be talking about this. The next article, and again, I can get bogged down in these conversations about this and trying to elaborate on the context of it. So if you have questions or comments, feel free. I try to give a little bit of context with these shows, with these articles, but I don't necessarily want to stay on a subject too long, lest you get bored. This next article is in the Mobile Channel. France installs sensors on streets to tackle noise from hell. That's the quote, noise from hell. French authorities are installing quote unquote sound radars in some cities to detect and photograph vehicles making excessive noise, which they say is a public health hazard. So let's click this link. It's an article in the New York Times. And has a big picture of the Champs-Élysées in Paris. Residents say that motorcycles and modified scooters are among the worst offenders when it comes to noise. Yeah, a lot of motorcycles are really loud. But this is an article by Emma Bubola. I'm not sure. It might be Bubala. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. So let me know either in chat or in some way if I can mispronounce your name. And it says, when France introduced speed cameras 20 years ago, it drastically reduced the number of car accidents and helped save tens of thousands of lives. Now the government is taking aim at another scourge, the ear-splitting noise that has been a fact of life for residents of French cities. So they're placing sound sensors around the city, and I'm sure there has to be, along with those cameras, those sound sensors, so that they can identify who it is. That is where it says here, awakened by motorcycles roaring outside their apartment. Quote, it's unbearable. It's a constant acoustic aggression. Yeah, it can be. I've actually gotten a ticket for what's referred to as exhibition of speed. And that was because at 2:00 in the morning, I drove through an intersection too fast, apparently. Quite an intriguing interaction that led to me having to modify my exhaust. So I know about loud noises, and at least from the producer side, I guess, and loud noises as on the consumer side. Yeah, I can agree. There are some vehicles that are just way too loud. But then again, it really depends on the context. In some cases, I have no concern, but when you're in an inner city, when you're in a city that is where the roads are banked by buildings and somebody goes roaring down the street, it can be nerve-wracking. So I'm sure that I will be told by somebody at some point that if it's too loud, you're too old, that kind of a thing. Maybe even call me a boomer. I'm not, but it says people rediscovered calm. They could hear birds singing in the city. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess if everything falls in line and it's not really crazy oppressive, I don't think anybody really needs a vehicle that screams down the road. The reason why motorcycles are loud partially are to keep people alive, because people in cars make turns without actually noticing a motorcycle. So there's context to this, and I'm sure that the loudest in this discussion is not going to win, but it's a good discussion. Do you feel that it's appropriate to silence motorcycles and scooters and cars that are quote unquote too loud? And what is that level of loudness? The next article is over in the Word in Tech, and it is beware, new IRS rules will lead to wave of phishing frauds. Services like PayPal and Square now need your tax information. Scammers are going to be on the prowl to get it too. Thanks to new legislation that went into place at the beginning of the year, I predict that a lot of unsuspecting small business owners are about to fall victim to a fresh scam. The person that wrote this article is Gene Marks for The Guardian. And the little section is all about scams. And I would say that this is true because I've already been contacted regarding personally identifiable information related to my taxes. At one point, somebody tried to file my taxes, and subsequently, I now have to use a special code that changes every year so that I can file my taxes. It's probably the least frustrating aspect of doing taxes, but every time that there is some policy change that provokes somebody having to do something, reveal information, or makes them have to take some other path to providing data, for whatever reason, there are thousands of people out there that pour energy into doing a fraud attempt. Whereas if they would just focus that energy on doing good, they could probably run, a Fortune 500 business, yet they're spending their time trying to scam people. Quote unquote, easy money, I suppose, but in the United States, you are bound to get caught. If you do it overseas and you kind of predate on people in the United States, it's going to be really hard. Just like any other cross-border type of action, it gets really tough to prosecute a perpetrator of a fraud. But nowadays in the United States, you pretty much won't get away with it. Eventually you'll get caught, and it won't be nice. That said, I want you to go over to The Guardian, and we're all in that tax season now, either preparing for or have already done it. So be aware, because as I've said in other episodes, abuse happens in the dark. So be aware, know what's going on around you, situationally aware, and you won't fall victim. And you as a viewer may already be savvy, but talking to other people who you think may not be as savvy as you, may not be as digital street smart, if that could be a phrase, your ability to save them is part of the societal contract. Don't let somebody fall prey to somebody else's fraud. The next article is over in the Word and Tech channel on the case of the wine fraudsters. Are you a wine drinker? For centuries, swindlers and thieves have been drawn to the highly lucrative world of wine crime, but a new generation of tech-savvy detectives are closing in on them. So let's take a look at this article. It's over at The Guardian. The Observer. Ed Cumming is the author. For centuries, right? Ed Cumming meets the men and women trying to put a cork in the business of wine fraud. Oh, Ed. They go into great detail in this, apparently. But it's an article over at The Guardian. And it says, there are lots of gray areas. We need to make sure that if we have any issues with something, it doesn't come into the business, says Mulan. Questions do arise. There aren't many people who can deal with it. The police have no interest. So what are they doing? He is the quality. Okay, so Mulan, I guess it is Mulan. A genial figure who has been into wine since he was a boy, has sometimes been called a wine detective, quote unquote. He is the quality and authentication manager at Berry Brothers, who in recent years has specialized in helping to check everything the company buys is up to scratch. Berry Bros, I'm going to assume it's brothers, is the first British merchant to employ an authenticator, recognition that their reputation is based on trust and that fraudulent wine is a serious problem in the trade. Well, it is, particularly when bottles are sometimes thousands of dollars, maybe more. I don't recall what the most expensive wine bottle is, but I'm sure it's up probably in the millions. Milan shows me some of the dozens of ways to check a wine is real without actually tasting it, from the weight of the bottle to the level of the wine within, watermarks, paper with a unique weave, ink with special DNA, microchips in the bottle. Using a magnifying glass, he shows me micro written hidden within what looks like lines. So it's microtext. A UV torch reveals hidden flecks of reflective material. All of this kind of stuff actually can be duplicated. I would say the only way that you can put a real pinch on it is if you can embed something like an RFID chip within the bottle's glass itself. That would be probably an amazing feat. And then be able to on demand track what that chip is, where it is, who owns it, etc. And just have it behind a tracking service. There may be ways to clone that as well, but you can't have two of them. Every bottle would be unique. So if one pops up somewhere, where is it? Who owns it? How did it get there? If you can't prove its legitimacy, it's fraud. So this article will continue on. Let's see. In 2019, thieves bored a hole in a cellar beneath a Paris restaurant and made off with 600,000 euro worth of wine. Oh my God. Let's see. 300 pounds worth of wine, 45 bottles, stolen from a resort in Spain. And that's a different one than the one that I just mentioned. It said last October. Oh, it's a single bottle. A single bottle? Wow. A single bottle worth almost 300,000 pounds. Expensive. So it is serious. Thanks for the article, Ed. Go over to The Guardian and you can click the link that's in chat on the case of the wine fraudsters. The next article, I'm running really behind. Australian rain bomb floods claim sixth life. So I've been hearing about this, and I've been interacting with some people that are over in Australia that have basically been flooded out, destroying property. Obviously, it's taking lives. And this is actually, it says sixth life, but as far as I know, there's at least 7. But it's a serious thing. And this article is over at phys.org. And I'm not sure, it doesn't seem to have an author. But yeah, there's some serious natural disaster taking place right now. And if you are interested in helping out in any way, read the article and then do some due diligence. I don't have any connections other than some, conversation with people that are in Australia that are being impacted by this. But I wanted to draw some attention to it. Technology can help track all of this kind of stuff and kind of mitigate some of the damage that's done through awareness. But unfortunately, the way that this happens is it comes on so fast and so hard that there's just no way that you can get out of the way other than being out of the way once the initial warnings start. And sometimes they don't come on fast enough, those warnings. It says, with intense rain expected to continue into next week, more than 1,400 homes in Brisbane were at risk from floodwaters. And yeah, that's similar to what I've heard, is that it's simply flooding everything. And we find out about it instantly around the world because of reporting that goes global. This next article is the data game, what Amazon knows about you and how to stop it. Good luck with that. The tech giant has many ways of gathering information about its users' activity, from Prime to Alexa, but how much can it collect, and what can you do to keep your life private? Well, you'll have to get rid of everything and stop purchasing through Amazon. I'm going to click this link, and I'm also going to let you know. Okay, so this is an article at The Guardian, and it's written by Kate O'Flaherty. And really, you'll want to read this article for yourself so that you can get the gist of just how expansive it is. But every company that you are interacting with, from Twitch to Twitter to Facebook, Amazon, Google, your ISP, everybody is tracking everything that you do. There are cookies on websites that plant onto your computer. You can try and delete them, but then you're the anonymous one that, through your patterns alone, you could be segregated from the other unknowns at some point in time. And without getting into specifics, I know someone who never had a social media account. And the moment that they created a social media account, Google attached their account, connected it to somebody else's account that there was no connection to, because this person had no social media until they created an account. So suddenly they're tied to somebody that they've never interacted with outside of a professional setting. Odd, right? Well, it's because all of the numbers line up. And through artificial intelligence and machine learning, big data, data gathering, mining, etc., you end up having a profile, and your profile exists whether you like it or not. So this article goes into some detail about it. It says, more broadly, Amazon says much of the information it collects is needed to keep its products working properly. An Amazon spokesperson said the company is, quote unquote, thoughtful about the information we collect. Well, of course they are. Of course they are. So they track everything, but so does your ISP. Your ISP knows more about you unless you're using a VPN. And then it's the VPN's exit node where you are popping out that knows everything about you. The DNS that you're using knows more about you because every time you type in a website, it's doing a DNS search. So if you think that Amazon is a problem, you're going to have to stop purchasing everything from Amazon. If you think that Google's the problem, you're going to have to stop using websites in general, because Google has tracking on every single page. If you look at the source code of a website, right? You right click on it, you say view source, you'll look at the web page, you look for the ad tracker. It is there, which means that it's sending telemetry back to Google. How long you're on a website, what it is that you're clicking on that's leading to another page within a website. It's all being tracked. The only way to stop it is to stop. You can mitigate some of that data, but for the most part, good luck. The next article is in the Warcrafters channel, and we can talk about it more if you want. But basically, it isn't that privacy is dead. It's that privacy is very open to interpretation. I'll put it to you that way. You can keep on deleting cookies. You can stay logged out. You can use an incognito browser, which does absolutely nothing for your external presence. It only stops people from seeing what's stored on that particular browser's instance at that particular time. but you still reach out to your ISP, you still reach out to DNS. Forensically, it matters not to me. I'll still be able to grab your computer and do a forensic copy and then mine everything that you've done. It's certainly, maybe a low bar of prevention, but you'll still be found out if you're committing a crime and get caught in some way. The data is there. That said, this particular article is in the Warcrafters channel. A Game Award trophy that's been missing for 4 years turned up on eBay. YouTuber and streamer, Prestigial's Key? Sure. AKA Ryan B is a big fan of the Game Awards and watches the ceremony every year. He thought it would be cool to own a replica Game Award, something he could put on a shelf. Gamer tat. All streamers are required to have behind them. What is that? What it's called? A gamer tat? Interesting. To have behind them in videos by law. Okay. So he looked on a few sites, including eBay, and was surprised to find not a replica, but an actual Game Award listed for $500. And the seller's other listings was car parts and key fobs. Interesting. When the award arrived, it turned out to be legit. It was the 2018 award for Best Independent Game won by Celeste. Interesting. So let's click this link. Takes you over to PC Gamer and an article written by Jody McGregor. That's a neat award. I like the style. Very neat. So you can find out more about this article if you go over to PC Gamer. You can click the link as usual. I know I'm repeating myself often in this, but I'm trying to remind everybody that everything is just a click away. Ryan ended up taking a gamble, paying $375 plus shipping. When it arrived, it turned out to be legit. Wow. So I'm going to pause this video. So go over and you can find out more about it if you are oh so interested. And now you can go over to eBay and do another search, and I'm sure that the prices for Game Awards have gone up. The next article, we're almost done, is a music one, actually. It's in the continuity report, which is about videos, movies, things like that. But it says, if you're easily triggered by 30 to 40 foot props, dance routines with dozens of performers, childish wonder, juvenile humor, drug trip simulations, or just color, by all means avoid Katy Perry play. So if this is anything like her performance on Saturday Night Live recently, this is going to be an interesting click. It might be a risky click, but it says Katy Perry on Conquering Las Vegas with a show that combines Pee-wee's Playhouse with What Would Liza Do? This is an article written by Chris Willman for Variety.com. And I'm going to scroll down here and see if there's anything else. Yeah, she's actually responding to questions. When Perry spoke with Variety about the production, she was in a chair backstage getting a touch-up on her new do, saying, I'm getting my hair dyed right now. What do they say? It smells like asking mama. Okay. So this is an actually like a one-on-one interview with Variety. So I would encourage you to go over and take a look at it. But it looks like, yeah, it looks a lot like the SNL episode, which had mushrooms dancing around, giant mushrooms dancing around. Well, people dancing around in mushrooms and giant mushrooms on the set. And it was all kind of weird. So I would say a trip, but that's a little bit too